So I put together a treasure trove of 50 topics we can touch upon when it comes to journaling. And I want you to give me a number, 1 through 50, any random number, and that's the topic we're going to talk about.
Okay, 27.
27. Let me go check. Oh, that's an easy one. Well, no, it's a hard one. It comes from the theme work and creativity, out of the sphere of work. And people will learn what the spheres are as we go. But our topic today is a blank page you can't begin. Probably a widespread issue, especially for beginners when they start journaling, right?
Absolutely. And I think a large part of the motivation behind this entire project was my own experience of that in the past and the frustration in a way with trying to approach life, which is multifaceted, but always managing to stumble across the same topic because the page was blank and because my mind wasn't really agile enough to think out of the box.
It's interesting that you say agility. Like when I was thinking about the blank page so many times, like so many others, um, I think what kind of made it hard for me to start is the possibility of the blank page. Like the no rules, the no guidance, no direction, and having to focus in my job on a very set group of tasks every day. I do a lot of time blocking, so that's how I regulate myself and how I keep myself accountable. Um, like that loose, the word escapes me. The unstructuredness is probably what paralyzes me about a blank page. And then, of course, you develop techniques, to get you out of that. I think I mentioned it in our community chat. I'll start doodling, like, just start with a circle or a triangle, whatever, and I'll draw around it until I kind of like lose the focus on that empty page, and then I can really get going.
I think that the possibility you mentioned is both an opportunity and a threat in some ways, because there's so many possibilities, so many different directions you could go in. And like you, I'm somebody who is quite structured in my life, in my routines and everything. And I think what I began to do was to look for structure, even the structure that I created for myself, so that I could bring some focus to this task and also get the most out of it, because we're talking about maybe half an hour a day. And for me personally, I'm not an artistic doodler, and I think I would probably see that as a frustration if I had to start doodling and couldn't really find my way through to a topic. And so what I began to do naturally, I think, is to think of the various topics that determine someone's life, like their family, like your love life, your financial life, your professional life. And the whole idea behind creating creating a guided journal, was to allow someone to focus across areas of their life which needed attention. Because I think we have a tendency to zoom in on the same areas time and again, those areas which cause us problems, and maybe to ignore those areas which bring us joy, which is, again, the idea behind a gratitude practice. Because we're conditioned, I think, to look for threats. We always have been ever since we lived in caves. And so what I've tried to do through this concept of creating questions across the different spheres or different areas of life is to force us to think in the round, and not just to to zoom in on the thing which might be troubling us, which I think in a blank page syndrome, it's probably a danger that we keep on coming back to the thing which is annoying us.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I also think like in comparison to other guided journals that are very generalistic, if you want, where they tend to circle us in on certain aspects. I think the way you put together the questions for us is more of a walking away from something to give it space. Like, I don't know. Let's say I'm arguing with my neighbor all the time because my grow lights are on until 11 o'clock at night and they shine into her bedroom, right? Um, which is a fact, which is I just need to change my programming, but because of the time change, that obviously didn't happen. Um, but that's an issue that I have with myself, like taking those 2 minutes out of my busy day to reschedule my timers so she doesn't look at me every time we see each other on the street like I'm some kind of horrible person, right? And there's obviously something underlying there that I cannot prioritize those 2 minutes to change the timers on my grow lights, and that would be something that I would journal about if I were working with a blank page.
Mm.
Circling that rather than stepping away from that very problem by being guided through one of your questions to something else, maybe, and thus give that problem in the back of my head space to breathe, if you want. Um, Again, I'm losing myself in very weird thought patterns mid conversation, but I hope you can follow what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, yeah, and I think that's what differentiates those questions from your typical, how was your day? Who made you smile? What made you sad today? What do you wish to repeat tomorrow that happened? Like,
Yeah. And I think it's good to train a focus on those areas of life which we wouldn't normally be aware of, or those areas which maybe we push to one side, a bit like you with your lights. We never procrastinate over things that we want to do. We never put off buying an ice cream until the next day, but we do put off things that we don't necessarily want to get done. And I think it's the same with certain areas of our life. Much as I said just now that we might come back and focus on those areas which are somehow bothering us, it's also possible that the opposite takes place, that we focus only on the parties or on what's bringing us joy, and we leave things that are unexamined, and in our absence of attention, they can then fester, pushing something under the carpet in a way, like an unresolved relationship with somebody in your family, or a problem that you've been experiencing with money, which you keep on pushing into the corner of your mind, the dusty corners where the broom never quite reaches. And I think part of the discipline of this, so on the plus side, it offers a structure, it offers us a question, so we never have to really think, what should I write today? Even though that's also an option. Option while doing a guided journal is to put aside one day a week for letting whatever comes up. Okay, nothing, there's no rigid rule about this. But I think it's good to have that option, that we can have questions which force us to go and look at areas of life that either we've been putting to one side or we simply haven't considered. Like
yeah,
I've been writing questions recently about friendship. And friendship is something which I don't give a lot of thought to. But in writing the questions, I suddenly came to appreciate some people and to realize what they've been doing for me. So that's an area of life which is neither one towards which I rush, nor one I run away from, but is nevertheless sitting there right in the middle of the room, like a piece of furniture, which I think is is worth looking at. Is worth looking at the table in the middle of the room and appreciating it also, and asking questions about its position in your room, the room
Yeah.
being a metaphor for your life.
Yeah, I agree. It's pretty much exactly, probably to the month, 20 years ago, that I was admitted to a clinic after a burnout, which manifested physically in that I had a really high fever for like 3 months, and no matter what we did, it just wouldn't come down. And ultimately, we had determined that because I had just finished school, taken exams, I was working two jobs, I had two kids under the age of 10. Um, like I was just, it wasn't called burnout back then. It was something about psychomatic, whatever. And my doctor said, you need to go to a clinic for a couple of weeks to, like, you know, just be. And do you know Knipe? He
I've heard of
was,
that.
he's the guy who came up with these cold water trenches that you walk through up to
Right.
your calves, right? So a lot of the physical therapy there was based on his teachings. And then other than that, we were asked to journal a lot, aside from group therapy and whatnot. But journaling during that time was a huge thing. And it's funny that you brought up friendship because during that time, I discovered that I had a lot of people around me who I considered friends, but who really were just like vampires, sucking the energy out of me. And like I was getting nothing back in return. Not that that is why I have friendships, right? We give freely, unconditionally, ideally. And, but I had just discovered by actually taking the time to think about my friendships, I discovered that many of them were one-sided. Like I would give and give and give my time, my energy, my advice, everything. But I was getting none of that in return. So at the end of that stay in the clinic, I reached out to maybe about 20 people and I said, listen, this is what happened. I was in a clinic. You didn't call once. That just goes to show how much you think about me. And back in the day, calling was like the way to be in touch, right? We didn't have Facebook the way we do today, or social media, WhatsApp, etc. Like these were the days when I used to spend like hours on the phone talking to my best friend, whatever. And I told them, I love you and I appreciate you, but our relationship is not serving me in the same way that it's serving you. And therefore, I'm just going to let you go and I wish you well. And that really came down to the process I went through while journaling.
Mm.
And had I gone on with those relationships, God knows how much more of myself I would have poured out there without getting anything in return.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's the power of journaling right there.
Yes. And of reflection. So journaling as a tool for examining your own life. And it comes down to, again, this dichotomy that I think we mentioned last time. Either life is something which is handed to you and you deal with it, and it is what it is, and all of these phrases, or it's something where you think, I can be an agent here. This is something malleable. I can take control, take over the reins. Again, the wheel of the ship, there's a whole bunch of metaphors around that, which are all equally valid. And I think that taking control can only begin with reflection and with going through the kind of process that you went through. Otherwise, we simply trundle on and put up with things within ourselves and within others, and that there's no meaningful change takes place. Or the only change that takes place is one that's forced on us from outside, as
Right.
opposed to one that we drive from within.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess we could sum it up. The blank page syndrome can either be driven by, um, what did you call it? Something with an
Like,
A. This is my menopause brain. I said it's like walking away from something, like the possibility of the blank page, right? You called it the It was something very masculine. I should take notes while we're doing these.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
Um, I'm sure people will remember when they watch this.
Yes, better than
Um,
that.
but like the third thing could be just the fear of confronting yourself and kind of shielding yourself from actually doing the work because
Exactly.
distraction is so readily available, right?
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Avoidance, avoidance.
Right. Yes, yes. Yes, absolutely. So I think it can work in those both ways. And I think that what we're here to do with this project is to help people. I mean, there's some people maybe who never have that problem, who go deep and think about their lives in and around without any problem. And I'm very happy for them. But my sense is there's a lot of people out there who could benefit from journaling, but don't really know how to start. And those people are kind of paralyzed in a way when they see a blank page. And either they do nothing or they give up journaling, or they only scratch the surface of the potential that's there for self development.
Yeah, I agree. Was it this week? I think we published a blog post where I went over some of the reasons or methods how people journal. I think last week it was about writing to reflect, and this week I wrote about writing to collect. The scrapbooking and the commonplace book and all those things. And I thought to myself, is that something that I would ever be interested in? Like collecting in a journal. And for myself, I've decided no, because when I journal, it's more about letting things go, letting thoughts go,
Mhm.
letting ideas go, letting fears go, letting dreams go sometimes, right? But that was interesting. And I'm thinking, like, within the journaling practice of keeping a commonplace book or keeping a scrapbook or anything like that, again, that's like distraction baked into the journaling. But then I'm like, okay, not everybody thinks like you.
Sure.
And I went onto Reddit to see some examples because obviously there's a subreddit for everything. And it's amazing how crafty people get and how much fulfillment they find in doing it. So sometimes I wonder if it's really about holding on to those pieces or rather like just the practice, of selecting pieces, of pressing flowers, of cutting out images from newspapers or whatever, or taking little photos, and just the practice of actually bringing all of that together. So I thought that was quite interesting. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I'm pretty sure that people who journal like that probably never have that problem with a blank page.
No,
Like, this is a lot of assuming. We would probably have to do some market research for that. But um, yeah, I thought that was interesting.
absolutely. Yes, I've never been tempted to do that. I did keep scrapbooks when I was a child, but not for the last 50 years, certainly.
Remember those Paganini books for where you had the like the stickers of soccer players and whatever, and you put them in the books?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
so there was several different kinds when I was growing up, and I always asked my mom to get me those because I thought I had to run with everybody else because everybody else was doing it. But then, like after page three, I absolutely lost interest. So yeah, that kind of collecting on paper is not for me. I'm definitely more of a
Mm.
thinking on paper person.
Yeah, innocent days. Of course, they were all tied to purchases,
Yeah,
usually from petrol stations in the UK.
yeah,
Whenever you bought petrol, they give you a sticker.
yeah.
And of course, a whole market developing around those in school because you had two of the same and somebody
And then
else
you
had
got to
some.
trading.
Yes, exactly. All training us in the ways of capitalism, which is a long way from what we're trying to do with this journal.
Yes. And because we're going on a tangent, I say let's wrap it up for today.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I think we got to get our thoughts out. Again, very unscripted, very unfiltered about the blank page. And I look forward to what topic you pick next week.
Absolutely. Me too.
All
Okay.
right. Thank you, Andrew. Have a good one.
You too.
And everybody else.